We are here today to dispel this myth of me liking bad stories. When I did that recent review of Force Works, the issue that was part of the cross-dressing, a viewer, I want to say it was Kumquatsus, but I'm probably wrong. He mistook my defense of that issue or certain story elements to mean that I was a fan of the cross-dressing. I didn't like the cross-dressing. It is a bad story. There are parts that are okay, and I personally think it is better than what Kurt Busey did to it. But here is another one that is pretty much a bad story. Secret Wilds 2, Issue 9. The conclusion to this confused mess of a crossover. I like the cover here, and when I say I like something, it is... I am trying to find good in comics. I'm not reviewing this because it's not that good. There are sparks or little things, and actually one big thing in this one, that I think if the rest of the crossover around it had been improved, it would make for a good Marvel event. Our basic story for Secret Wilds 2 is that Beyonder Man has come to Earth, and across 9 issues we have seen him have temper tantrums, suddenly change his entire personality from scene to scene, and even have Spider-Man teach him how to use the toilet. Beyonder Man is an awful character in this story because he often doesn't make sense, and each issue sees him determined to do one thing, and then by the next he has a different agenda with no clear progression from the last. And the tie-ins didn't help matters either, with them only complicating his overall direction and goals. When it comes to tie-ins, the highlight of Secret Wilds 2 is Avengers 265, which I have reviewed. I would call it a perfect issue. It is faultless. And that one just sees the Avengers try and fight Beyonder Man. And this final issue picks up on that, with the Avengers calling in reinforcements for round 2. So let's talk about the art. Al Milgrom. This is an image that is a fail in a lot of ways. It is not dynamic, it's not flashy, it's not very good. This is a splash page to show us all the heroes involved, except they are not all there. He hasn't even come close to fitting all the heroes who are there into this splash page, which is alarming considering all the empty space. An example of that is Darth Knight, who is not depicted with the Avengers. And I could list loads of others, but this image layout, this composition, this would work, and this only works if you fill in all these gaps. If you have this picture packed with all the different heroes, And there is more than enough to do that, and Al Milburn totally failed. And so the problem is you have characters just show up in the background throughout who you didn't realise are even meant to be there. The Excellent Men, at least, they say they are just arriving, and that is why they were not on the splash page. But even here, this panel, this isn't all the Excellent Men. Mr. Magnets, the Smurf, Storms, we see them later on. The art does an awful job of establishing characters and criticising the art could eat up a lot of this video. So as far as stories gone, Heroes vs Beyonder Man is something that I can be down with. It is simple and effective. That's not to say any of the ideas they presented in this series were inferior to that. I think if you wanted to do a deep philosophical story with Beyonder Man, that is fine too. But the problem was that this wasn't that. This was a crossover that started down about 30 directions and then pursued none of them. There was one issue where Beyonder Man wanted to experience love, and then another where he hired Daredevil because he wanted to legally acquire and own the world. And all the things like that just stopped sharply after an issue, and they were not mentioned again, and they didn't add up to any of Beyonder Man's various changes of art or his mood swings. Here is one of the worst parts of this issue. Beyonder Man resurrects the new muties who he killed in their tie-in issue, which I reviewed and tore up. He resurrects them and makes them loyal to him. This is part of the story that isn't important. It is just a useless distraction. It's really, really not needed. You needed to bring these characters back, but just have Rachel Phoenix resurrect them to fight alongside the heroes instead. This is just annoying to you if you like these characters, and it is a shocking waste of page time for a finale to a crossover like this. The other thing I hate, this is the example of the slapdash pursuit of certain directions and ideas. Beyonder Man decides to birth himself, to experience being born and reborn so that he can understand the humans. And it leads to another terrible part of this issue. But here is the best thing about this story. Not this scene, but this leads to it. We have Molecular Man, who is a retired supervillain that has wound up factoring into both Secret Wild stories. And he is one of the few people on Earth who might actually be able to stop Beyonder Man. But he doesn't really want to because he is happily married and he doesn't want to risk dying or out like that. We also have Satan. He shows up and he has dropped in on Secret Wilds 2 every few issues. He doesn't really do anything. And there is stuff in here that is like the right ingredients for a good story. It just really needs a rewrite and some focus. Satan, he has wanted to deal with Beyond a Man for a while. Beyond a Man is too powerful for Satan's liking, and he stands to upset the structure of the Marvel Universe. So then, back with the heroes, and up there you can see Darth Knight, just to prove I wasn't lying. And the other thing is, we technically in this, we have my Dream Avengers roster. And you see, part of my guilty pleasure here is that during Secret Wars 2, much like the deluxe edition of the Andy books, this is like the Marvel Universe I love. We have most of my favourite setups for the heroes, and little things like Thor having a beard, or Roddy Rhodes still being an Iron Man. They are fighting the New Muties here, which is a waste of time, and it goes on for a while too. Terrible. We finally get to the main course. All these heroes against Beyond a Man. Or rather, these heroes showing up to fight him, but there not being enough room to even include a hint of that. And I would love this so much more if those 6 or 7 pages wasted on the New Muties were instead given to let us see Thor or Silver Surfman fight hopelessly against Beyond a Man. But we jump to Molecular Man standing up in defense of Earth and fighting Beyond a Man. This stuff is great. Molecular Man's character arc in this issue and the crossover as a whole. It is the most accomplished bit of storytelling in Secret Wars 2. Sadly, a bit crapped on by this element of Beyond a Man wanting to be reborn as a baby. But after their little fight, their combat has wrought so much devastation on the planet, and Molecular Man, he feels defeated and exhausted. He was having to also use his powers to prevent irreparable damage to the biosphere and an untold amount of deaths. And he isn't sure if he is powerful enough to stop Beyond a Man. And he tells Captain America that he's just not much of a hero. Some lovely payoff to this in a few pages, but I didn't think any story has been improved by including a fetus. I hate this plot beat, but Molecular Man, he destroys Beyond a Man's machines, and then he obliterates Beyond a Man, and in the process he saves the planet and the universe. And this would have been a nice close to the ordeal, but to make sure you didn't celebrate too much, here is Silver Surfman cradling the dead body of an infant. And here is where Captain America congratulates Molecular Man and calls him a hero, which would have been a good scene if we dropped all the reborn as a baby shite. I have avoided using the word pretentious in this because That is a word that has lost its meaning a bit through critical analysis of things, but there is a strong whiff of it to Secret Wilds 2. Beyond a Man is a writer insert, so is Molecular Man, and all these ideas about existence and life, very, very full of itself. And it is the parts that are not like that, or are not trying to have much of a point, that work. The parts where Beyond a Man is a clear villain, or Beyond a Man is focused. Not when he is asking, what is life? What is death? What is love? Baby, don't hurt me no more. I do think there are squirts of summer in this one. I would still call it a failed story, but it could be salvaged. I think I am going to give it a 7 thumbs up.